PSD board.
Okay, this is on the agenda because we wind up, as Mr. Gregory alluded to, a inconsistency in the information that had been provided to us from the PSD board concerning who sets and what their terms are and things of that nature. In the documents that I have seen, and I haven't looked at all documents, and I know Mr. Matthews has reviewed them also, but it seemed to me that the documents that we obtained from the Secretary of State's office were identical as far as who was seated up through a particular, do you know what year it switched over?
2012.
Well, it was
Right.
original, it went to as far as a 2013 end date instead of 2015.
Correct.
And we're talking about the seat you were occupying.
Right.
And,
2012 letter to Secretary of State's office says 2015.
well, that's what we're
Right, and
saying.
then the next,
That's what we're saying,
the
Jack.
next letter.
So it changed in 2013.
Oh, okay, yes. The
Yeah.
last letter is 2012 that says,
Right.
It's four. But anyway, what happened was, to me, it looks like the simple end of it is that, from what I could see, Mr. Gregory was appointed in 2009 to serve a term that ended 2015. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that, I mean,
Yes.
that's what I remember from it
Yes.
anyway. Until the documents that we submitted, and I was thinking it was a year before, but it must be the documents we submitted this year when we requested the information from the PSD, showed that his term ended in 2013.
correct.
So there's a difference in what, I mean, and I don't care what happened, I just want to make sure we have the correct dates. I mean, you know, I want, to me, if it's 2 or 3 years before this man's term was 2009 to 2015, it ought to still be 2015 as the end time. Unless something happened that I'm not,
Can I interject one thing, and that is, that according to the PSD office, Sharon Ryan, the county commission in the past has never sent orders to the PSD showing when they make these appointments. So it seems to me that one way to solve this ever happening again is for the county commission to make sure when you appoint somebody, you notify the PSD office. The PSD office can sit there till the cows come home and talk about going back to 1984 or whenever. But they've never had an order from the county commission knowing when the appointments were. So I don't see how they could possibly reconstruct when the terms are supposed to be. But if you sent them the orders, so they had them, they'd be over there, they'd be at the PSC, they'd be at the Secretary of State's office, and they'd be here. And you shouldn't have this problem.
well, I think that's, you know, historically, I know there may have been times that went back prior to the people that are sitting on the PSD now. But what I'd like to direct the conversation is to, what do we need to do to correct this clerical error, whatever it was, and make sure that we have properly seated individuals on your board. In looking at, as far as I can see, it looks to me like, and I don't know, this is just my opinion, is that Mr. Gregory's term ends 2015, and Mr. Rudy would have taken over Mr. McAllister's term when he grew. And I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't remember the circumstances of what happened before, but to me, unless we're doing something illegal, it would be my suggestion that we go ahead and submit information that shows, as it was prior to this last information, that shows that you continue your term to 2015, and Mr. Thomas will be seated till the end of Mr. McAllister's term.
The new term.
To the end of the new term, yeah.
Is that 2020?
It would be from 2013, that's 6 years.
2019.
Rudy?
Also in line, I'm one of the members. Mr. Gregory should not have lost a check. He's still on board.
Well, I think any kind of clerical error, I mean, if we see that there has been an error in what was done, which I do think that has happened, I don't think you can not pay him.
Right.
I mean, because, you know, if he was a legally seated board member, unless there's some, like I say, I don't know the laws concerning these particular things we're dealing with, it just seems fair to me that if
I'm
his,
not demanding that, and Mike Mosteller, I'm not so sure we're not paid by the meeting and not by the month, is that right?
It is for the meeting.
Okay,
Yes.
so I didn't attend the meetings because he was there, so that's
It's
probably,
one-
probably a
one-
moot issue.
It's
One amount if it's a regular meeting, it's another amount if it's a special.
yeah, that'd be good.
But has Mr. Thomas been paid?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I'm gonna have Commissioner Matthews go through this, just so we can read this into record. As far as, so he's got the numbers here, I think, straight, so, or at least the way I understand them to be. But that would, once he reads this, I would think that we would probably have to have some kind of motion to go ahead and continue things as is, and submit this paperwork to the PSD and the PSC and the Secretary of State's office, pending Mr. Gabehart signing off on the legality of what we're doing, because I don't have any idea as far as the legal steps we have to take to do
My
that.
only question with that is, since my term's never expired, I'm not sure I know why you need to take any action on my term at all.
Well-
I don't care if you do. but-
Well, the motion would be to send the updated information to the Secretary of State's office and the PSC. You know, I don't want to get into, like I say, I just want to cure it. I want whoever's supposed to be there. And to me, it seems like, from what I can gather, you should finish out your term in 2015, and Mr. Thomas should finish out Mr. McAllister's
And be
term.
reappointed in 2015.
We will deal with that when we get there, so.
You want me to go?
Yeah, just go ahead.
All right, I have information from June 10th of 2005 from Lincoln County Commission to the Office of the Secretary of State, which shows Gilmer Mosteller's term from 8/12/04 to 6/30/2005. Jerry Limble's from 02/03/05 to 6/30/2009. And Fred Snodgrass from February the 3rd, 2005 to June the 30th of 2007, okay? And this was in 2005. There was a, and I'm going to have to stand up here. There was a lawsuit that was filed against, and I believe it was the Lincoln PSD, if I'm correct. But within this lawsuit, it was case number 80560 PWD-C, this requested the minutes for the meetings, for the regular meetings. And I went through and I've looked at the minutes for these regular meetings. And on June the 28th, of 2007, it states that Bruce Tully was a new board member, okay? Bruce Tully filled in for Fred Snodgrass, okay? And with the minutes from the Secretary of State that we sent to the Secretary of State, and we also have minutes that we sent to the Public Service Commission, it actually shows that Bruce Tully's term started 6/21/07 and it ends 6/30/2011. This was dated July 7, 2009. Okay, so we kind of have a basis for where Bruce's term is, whereas when we still know that he's on the board. So he was reappointed after 2011. He was reappointed on 7/1/2011. Okay, so that takes care of Bruce, and Bruce's term will end on June the 30th of 2017. Okay, now getting to Jerry Limble. All right, Jerry Limble. Referring back to the document that I had from 05, Jerry Limble's term started, pesky phones there, on February the 3rd, 2005, and it was to run from 6/30 to 2009. Okay? Unfortunately, whenever I look into the minutes, Jerry actually, he resigned. And Ron Gregory actually was appointed to fill the remainder of his term. Okay? And Jerry Limble's term ended on 6/30/2009. Okay? So Ron Gregory filled that term and was reappointed on 7/1/2009 for a 6-year term, which takes it to 2015. Okay? And then Gilmer Mosteller was appointed on 7/1/07. He resigned on October the 14th. And I have this information right here. Gary McAllister was put in to fill out his term, and his term ended on 6/30/2013. That's what I have. That's my documentation. And all this documentation is here if you'd like to look at it.
So when is Bruce's term expiring?
Bruce's term expires in 2017. Rudy's term expires in 2019, and your term expires in 2015.
As a taxpayer, wasn't it in the Lincoln Journal that Mr. McAllister was on 2 boards at the same time, you know, being paid twice?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
should we not request our money back from him being on a board illegally?
Doc, you want to take that one?
I think, I'll be honest with you, I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? If it was proven that he was,
Well, one reason is I'm not a lawyer.
okay.
That's the reason I don't
But-
know.
but
I
if
think
you're-
it's-
if
You know, I
it's-
think I have a good, I mean, I think, you know, it doesn't sound good to me.
No.
I mean, it doesn't sound right to me,
No.
but I don't know what the law would say about that. And I think, you know, anyone has the right to go about finding out what to do about that.
I think you would have to file a complaint with the Ethics Commission. That would be the first step to take. to file a
But what we really try to do is put inconsistencies or problems in a process that we can follow through with. And like I said, yes, sir.
Was Mr. Gregory actually voted on to be removed from the board?
None.
Wasn't voted on, it was just a clerical error, basically, that you all thought it was 2013 instead of 2015?
Well, we had received requests of information from the Secretary of State and to the PSC, wasn't it, about the constitution of the board. And we responded by sending Mr. Mosteller a letter requesting he give us that information, and I signed off on it and sent it in. But that information was different than prior years' information. And that's the problem, and that's why I say this is, you know, I think the best way to do it as far as, you know, you can look at historically, it seems like we ought to do what we did. Mr. Mosteller.
I just want to point out that there's a lot of discrepancies in the paper. I have one from the Public Service Commission, or from the Secretary of State, which you sent in, which in 2008, it shows that several appointments, one in particular, Mr. Gregory, shows a 7/1/09 to 6/30/15. But the letter's dated July 7, 2008.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a clerical error to me. I mean, I don't know how it could have happened.
That's what I'm saying, is that there are several clerical errors and everything, I mean, it's been taken back, and I think you have a copy of it all the way back to Merle County.
I think I have that information here. I haven't had time to review that. But I think, as I said, it seems to be, would be our concern as far as sitting members of that board and where they could operate and things of that nature. Mr. Paul.
Finished. I need help understanding, if you don't care, if you got a second, why anything extra would have to be done other than just going back to that meeting and fixing that clerical error in the minutes, because
Well, basically, the only motion that I would request is that that they authorize me to send a letter of corrections to these people about what we discussed here tonight. That it was an error, and that this is what, as best we can determine, this is the way it should be and the way we're operating now.
and what would the prosecutor, you mentioned the prosecutor, what would he have to do with that? You said he had to sign off on
That
something?
was another question that was brought up.
That was something totally different
Oh,
from that?
no, as far as the process itself, if someone would say, this wasn't done proper, then, you know, we've sought legal counsel for that. And I don't know that we'd have to. I'm just saying, I feel more comfortable, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners feel more comfortable, since we are not lawyers, that we ask our prosecutor as far as, if he feels this is the right way to go. And I haven't had the opportunity to discuss it with him.
If he would say no, what would be the
Well,
next
we'd
step?
have to follow whatever the legal way to do it was. I mean, whether we'd have to go ahead and make a motion or do something with this person or that, I don't know. I'm just saying, it seems to me like, looking at the things we have, Mr. Gregory has been on it all along, and Mr. Thomas is filling a position left by Mr. McAllister. And to me, that seems to be the most logical way to do it. We can make this motion with the caveat that our prosecutor would have to rule that this was the proper way to handle it. So do I have a motion to do that?
I move that we constitute this board with Ron Gregory serving his term to 2015, Rudy serving his term to 2019, and Mr. Tolley serving his term to 2017, as the documents show.
Okay, so, and I would like that in the form of a motion to send that the purpose of the motion would be to send that information to the PSC and to the Secretary of State. Do you agree with
I
that?
agree with that.
And the prosecutor.
And the prosecutor. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that an all yes?
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Now, is that effective now? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna send that, we're gonna ask him to look at what we've drafted and.
maybe I can see the minutes of a PSD meeting then sometime.
Before you close on this, Greg, is the
Wait, wait.
PSD supposed to sign his back pay at the next meeting? I mean, he's never been off the board.
He's never been off the board, then he's entitled to his back pay.
That's the way I feel.
Well, and that is one thing that would be the PSD's call. It's not our call here, okay? I mean, I wouldn't think it would be, because we're not the one that makes that decision.
Well, I feel this way, that to me, if you're gonna serve on a board, you all should have ethics that a board member has to follow. And I think if there's some investigation in the prior year of Mr. Gregory, that his ethics hasn't been up to standards of what I feel that somebody representing this county should be. And I think maybe y'all have documents of that. So I'm gonna say, I feel that y'all should investigate what ethics problems he's had in the last year and a half, and then make a decision if he's qualified. And if he is, fine.
I'd like to know that about those ethics problems too, because I've never seen them, know nothing about them, and have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay?
Well, this is our court, not your guys, okay?
Right.
And here, the statement I have is you have the right to request an opinion from the Ethics Commission on anything along that line. The PSD board has that right to do so. So, it can be done. I mean, if those things can be found out, and then it would be up to the PSD board to act on that. And then what we'd have to do is kind of go by what they did and what we have to do. But I think that those people on the PSD board should handle that. But now, any individual or anybody that's in public office knows that any individual has the right to ask an ethics opinion on what we do. But it has to be in writing and submitted to the Ethics Commission for that.
Can I ask you one other procedural question?
If I have the idea what the answer is, you can ask it.
You were provided information, you said, that you signed off on and forwarded to the Secretary of State's office.
Correct.
That was provided to you by whom?
The information we requested was from Mr. Mosteller.
I sent a letter to all PSDs.
And what it was basically a exact form that we turn in every year to the PSD, to the PSC, to let them know who's on the PSD.
Does anybody know, does Mr. McCann know where the prior years came from? Did it come from Mr. Mosteller too, or where did it come from? That's whoever can answer it.
I don't know, I just know this one came from, because I specifically requested the information from him as requested from us, from the Secretary of State and PSC. Let's go ahead and move on, guys. I think we kind of figured out what we